Today's fun fact of the day has to do with books. Did you know the longest book in the world is called, excuse my French, À la recherche du temps perdu? Now, I'm sure French teachers or French-speaking folks listening to this right now are cringing. Translated in English, it means a remembrance of things past. The book is recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest book because it measures a character count of a staggering 1.6 million characters or letters. Can you imagine reading a book that heavy and that intense? I'd go completely mad. It'd probably be one of those books that you started enthusiastically but could not finish reading. How would you even remember what happened at the start of the book? We often read a book and forget all the stuff that has happened in the previous page itself, forget about like 1,000 pages before it. Does this happen to you? Are you reading and suddenly realize that you have no idea what has happened so far? So you go back and you reread what you've just finished reading. Or how about this? You put your book down, you go for 20 minutes or so, do something, make yourself a coffee and come back and start reading. Now, after about 3 paragraphs, you realize that you've already read this before. All this back and forth causes you to lose interest in reading. My grandfather had this funny story. He famously used to complain about this. He was a successful entrepreneur, but uneducated. So he had a hard time reading. And every time he would sit down to read, my grandmother would call him and he would have to put the book down and then reread that last chapter because he completely forgot where he was. So he kept saying this is why he had never finished a book in his life, because every time he sits down to read, the grandmother calls. Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach Podcast, the podcast where we evolve into the best versions of ourselves, one awesome habit at a time. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. Now, the reason all this takes place, all this forgetting where we are, going back and rereading, the reason is that we are not focused while we're reading. Our attention wanders towards something or the other, what to make for dinner, a task on your to-do list. Reading becomes a passive background activity. We need to make reading more active and focused. There are a number of things that we can do for this. You can underline the words that you're reading. With your fingers, you can follow along, or with a closed pen, you can underline these. The same way that we were taught how to read in school, if you remember. The finger under the line follows the words as you're reading. This makes you more mindful and aware of the text on that page. Another thing you can do is you can highlight or take notes of important points or interesting facts that you've just found out. This way, it reinforces the idea back into your mind. Or at the end of a chapter, you can stop and try to recall what has happened and what were the important things that were mentioned. In fact, in my new book, A Habit a Day, we talk about these things because each chapter ends with an exercise that you can do. It's a workbook for your habits. While all these things take effort and appear to be more time-consuming, over the course of the book, rereading the same things over and over again because you forgot what was mentioned so far is more time-consuming. So the way to inculcate this active reading is to create a rule for yourself. And this rule is that you will never reread a paragraph or a page or a chapter. Once you read it, you have to move on. No going back and checking it out again. It doesn't matter if you can remember it or not, never go back and reread. This might sound a little bit like madness or a little extreme, but being strict with yourself for a few books will make it easier going ahead. So your super simple rule to start reading faster is to become an active reader. Never reread the page again. This is the rule that you have to follow. Use a tool. Make sure you are completely focused in the moment. Underline the words. Write things at the end of a chapter. All of this will make a difference. And if you are like my grandfather and find it hard to complete books, this habit is for you. Remember to check out my new book, A Habit a Day. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. If you like this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, give us a rating. It really helps with people discovering the podcast. If you like podcasts like this, check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can also watch all the episodes on the Habit Coach Awesome 180 YouTube channel. Follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. You can also reach out to me. I am Ashdin Doc at Twitter and Instagram. You can connect with me on my website, awesome180.com. You can also check out my 2 new books, Change Your Habits, Change Your Life, and the second, The Book of Good Habits for Kids. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach.
IVM